Thank you so very much. So lovely to be here. Thank you to the Tree Reading Series for organizing this. It's wonderful to see my relatives who live in this area. Stephen and Leah and Lynn and Bruce and Caleb and Natalie. Great happiness. I'm so glad to be here. I'm going to start with some recent poems, and then I'm going to read some poems from Church of the Exquisite Panic, the Ophelia poems. The first poem is called Nights Too Cold. And anyone that has taught has experienced meeting a student who is remarkable. And it is inspiring and humbling, indeed. So this is called Nights Too Cold. You became a street kid, breaking into your own heart, as if a locked house, the owner asleep or on vacation, shining your flashlight, not to steal, but to see if it was safe to enter, nights too cold to wander streets. You scaled walls barbed with wire, somehow managing to balance on top before you crossed over, tagging tunnels minutes before the train roared in. Fear was a bridge you crossed because it took you places. He was like a dragon breaking down walls, it is said of certain Chinese poets. No dragon, you hid your fire and entered rooms quietly, whether crowded or empty, looking for what was hidden behind doors. Young poet repelling, without any harness, the daring descent. You knew more than I knew, and I was your teacher. This true story, the next poem is called Orange. I was at Gatwick Airport, and this experience happened, and I thought, let me be able to write it down. Orange. On the Queen in line, intent on giving my order to the young man at the sandwich shop who misunderstands me. All the servers and cleaners at Gatwick have an accent. Name tags fastened, passports stamped just months ago at the border. Our orders taken by Alexis and Jamals and Hassans. Can I ask where you're from? Not Rimouski. You can ask, he says. And then Poland. As if we're both graduates. At an English conference, I ask, how absurd, do you like miłosz? Miłosz is Lithuanian, he tells me. And we're off on a conversation about Szymborska, Herbert, Zagajewski. The heartbreak of the astonishing word. Behind us, other royalty are impatient, as if he and I have hung our harps upon the willows and every tree in the midst thereof. We're thirsty in this billboard desert of mirages, where a broken fountain leaks into sand-colored muck. But I persist. Do you like England, I ask? When I ask for fruit, he thinks I want juice. Oh, orange you peel, he says, and goes to the back room to get one. It is the driest season, in a land of gold and silver bars, where rioters grab from shattered windows, and the river of Babylon is brackish and fevered, and young men give away what they don't yet have. For you is free, he tells me, so recently employed, wanting no money to change hands. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? I was lucky enough to spend 2 months on the island of Kawaii. And this is the poem I wrote about that, writing ourselves. You know, Kawaii, they have tsunamis and storms, and at one point all the chicken coops were broken down and the roosters rule that island. The roosters run around and crow all over the place. The roosters on Kawaii are confused. They screech all night as if they've been attacked. Ko-ku-ki-ko breaks through our scraps of dreams. Perhaps we're confused. Long yellow pods dangling from trees look from far away like bananas. Feral clouds, wet as gray fur, lower themselves on mountains. Then clouds freeze salmon blue, still life monitoring ocean. A bird is sitting on a horse. The sky blazing turns like a spit, pushing mountains forward. Should someone ask, what do you want? Moon on Maloli Ridge, a bowl of sky would silence us. Outside Kilauea Cake Shop, a parrot squawks, I'm a pretty bird, not caring who agrees or disagrees. Are we pretty birds too? Silence doesn't say, but where it takes us, we had no idea we could go. What we thought we wanted breaks like a wave, toppling what floats. Windows become mirrors, stars sliding down our throats. I guess I thought of that image as the car window that becomes a mirror, and then you see the stars. The earth crumbles. Though it's summer, nights grow cold, but the days are good company, risque even. Birds bursting their lungs, bees opening and entering corollas. Poppies, the most fiery flower, drops petals when I bring them indoors. I want to keep the fires burning so I can see in dark corners. Burning helps me pay my respects. Burning helps me homestead the land I've been given. The waste not, I understand. But the want not, K-N-O-T, is so tight, I have to untie it. This is what I hope for, to hear light and shadow as they flood fields, to occupy even briefly what they pass over, and to translate in my own way what doesn't speak. Aside from leaving this undone, I'm not afraid to join my mother and father. And the truth is, I am afraid to join my mother and father, who are both no longer on this earth. But I believe poems know more than we know. So I like to feel that this is a poem that is leading me to a place where I can honestly say I'm not afraid. I'd like to read a poem about my first husband. It's called Tree Man Was a Name You Called Yourself. He died 2 summers ago in July. And the April before he died, I had a dream about him, and a strange dream. And I thought, why am I dreaming about this man who I haven't been married to in over 20 years? It's a disturbing, upsetting dream. And then he died a few months later, and I understood the dream. And I will share this with you, that I gave a reading in May in Paris. And when I read this poem, the windows opened and the sun shone through. I mean, clearly he was in the room. So, Tree Man, if you want to join us, please do. The entire trip might have taken one long afternoon when we drove out of the city. Water, a glistening silver ribbon, unfolding beside us, and me in my party dress, scrunched beside you in the ladder. The name meant harmony, but everything about that day was discordant. Sun in our eyes, wind that roughened the road and strong-armed our direction, You pointed out elms you loved, shapely things, and jack pine that grows in the scruffiest soil and never reaches the age of its red cousins. You knew hemlock timber more durable than cedar, the timbre of your voice, a language in itself, filled with the twang of birdsong, the rakish cedar waxwing, the rat-tat-tat of woodpeckers. You too were a drummer on full moon nights, and like them would disappear into trees. You didn't rest, even when we pulled onto the shoulder of the road. Trickster at cards, something always up your sleeve. It was afternoon when we pulled onto the Trans-Canada. All you offered was to transform my life. We took our wish list with us, left our jobs, left the country, with my slight miscalculation and your sleight of hand. I only heard you sigh once, when you thought I was sleeping. We picked up hitchhikers, had children, bundled into that car maps, pillows, water, books, and then I got out and you kept driving despite the cracked mirror and bald tires and prediction of tornadoes. You veered off the road, confident the car could make it across the ocean, and it did. The motor of your vision roaring louder, louder, the muffler long gone. Didn't people in the villages complain? Right before you left to move even further away, you came back broken in a dream. And then afternoon turned into evening. How dead is dead. Well, maybe I'll just read one more poem, and then we'll read from the Ophelia poems. It's hard to take in poem after poem sometimes, I know. You know, when I wrote the Ophelia poems, I did, and it wasn't easy to get, let me tell you. I mean, we had another cover, the publisher had to go to great lengths. No, I'm kidding. But when I wrote the Ophelia poems, it was after a long prose project. And the poems started coming very quickly. I was very glad to get back to poetry. And I thought, who's writing these poems? And I thought, you know, Ophelia could be writing them. And that made it easier, too. But it's also about modern-day Ophelias, women whose voices were taken away from them. And there's a section of modern-day Ophelias. And when I was a young person in grade school and junior high school, there were a group of young women, well, kids really, and we would write poetry. And, you know, I've been very lucky, and I keep on writing poetry, and I've had a lot of, help in my life. But for some reason, this group of friends did not do well. All poets, really, they had a difficult time. And this poem, which is not in the book, but there are poems in the book which I'll read about other friends, but this poem is called Elegy. It's about one of my friends who was a poet along with me. Where were you when I talked with your mother? I can still hear her cigarette-drenched voice telling me your father was up to wife number 4. We'd go to the park, fields naked and held by trees. You wouldn't show me what you wrote, but once you showed me, everything about you was like a bird with long sweeping wings. Open, open, you said. You dropped out of university, started wandering dead-end streets. I couldn't keep up with your angers, fights you had with your mother, the man who left. I didn't tell you about my own long fall, resentment, that wild, dangerous bird you held so close, unnerved me. You who won scholarships and never bragged, whose silence, your old swag, always had currency. You died in a hospice after living on the street. You just turned 50. Your mother, absent with Alzheimer's, died shortly after. Clashing in life, you left almost together. Roberta or Jan, name you like to be called. I was dazed by the brilliance of your presence, but stronger and with more weight. Your absence. Who knows now your insights, like stones held too long, sharp and burning? Who remembers the heart line and lifeline both broken in your palm? So I'm going to read a few poems from Church of the Exquisite Panic. A letter. Today I walked until I came upon a lit building, and entering, saw it was a church where a woman with a child prayed. It was tall as a two-story house. That everyone has two stories, I am certain. What is and what is imagined. And though we long to lay a pattern like a chorale upon our lives, there are more incongruities than rhyme, more weight than words can possibly bear. Each street leads to the next. We judge one night against another and so miss the particular violet blue, the lemony balm, a violet wind's harmonic charm. My Lord, the path is worn. What I believe we find if we endure are the many names of God we know so few. In the church with its worn floor, I suddenly knew that every house, like a woman, has bones, blood, skin. What compassion we must accord. When next we find ourselves together, I will read you the prayer that showed me what color is, how each speaks in one of God's many voices. So bright, so near they dazzle, I no longer need to strain my ears to hear. May this honored day delight you. The next poem I'm going to read is called The Old Man, and it begins, when I die, the old man who lives inside me will give me his blessing and tend my body. So I wrote this poem when I was in my 20s, and I shared it with my mentor at the time, Bill Matthews, a wonderful poet. And he said, that's an odd poem, Carole. And it was an odd poem. When I die, the old man who lives inside me. So I put it away. I was in my 20s and for a long time. And when we were in Kawaii in 2009, many nights we would go to different beaches and I would meditate. And when I meditated, what appeared through these meditations was an old man. And he said, I brought you here, which was a beautiful thing, which made me feel that this energy is our birthright, that beauty is ours. Kawaii is a very, very beautiful place. There are many beautiful places. Anyway, the poem worked for the Ophelia poems, and I included it decades after I wrote it. But it took my life decades to catch up with my poems. Who knew there was this old man that I wrote about in my 20s? So I feel, and I know the poets in the audience feel that too, that our poems know so much more than we know. And that's the great gift of poetry. The old man. When I die, the old man who lives inside me will give me his blessing and tend my body. I forced him to lie shivering in cold water, and he forgave me. Eyes lively, he will oil my feet, soothe my hands. Each moment I approach death, he gets younger, stronger. There's so much I wanted, I'll tell him. Soon, he says, you'll want nothing. When I die, the old man who lives inside me will be willing and ready with answers, though I, deep in his body, will need no answers. I'll have no questions. Well, Plow. When plow blades turn soil, loamy earth falls into furrows. The solitary bittern skulks by the shore. Motionless, a heron waits for prey. Why should regret linger? The silent, frost-covered fields, white as a page, must be harrowed. Because night can elude the haunted hours, but only so long. There are times when accuracy is the opposite of candor, but only so long. Don't pretend you don't understand me. Stories, like secrets, are never safe until they're told. When you're broken open, even air can be healing. Hold fast. You are not yet the person you will be. Though under the vines, you are the flickering, and love's broad, curved blade cuts through you. Now, I don't know who wrote that last line, but it appeared there. Ow! But it just got there. So maybe I'll just read one more, and then if anyone has any questions. Ophelia's interview with Carole Young. Royalty. A borrowed cloak, muddied, laid on the soaking ground. Song. The harbor where I moored my boat. Silence. What quenched my thirst. Father. A leaky ship. Brother. Pocket of air as the ship went down. Betrayal, child I tried to drown. Grief, my teacher. Madness, mother I found for myself. Love, nothing is borrowed. Death, everything I thought I borrowed was mine. Thank you. So I was told that there can be a few minutes for questions if anyone has anything they want to ask. Susan?
Some moments I was hearing Rumi and other poets like that. Is this an influence on you?
I do love Rumi. Yes.
Interesting. The sort of richness and illusion of the physical, sensuous body and the philosophical comment that seems off to the side but isn't.
That sounds nice. That sounds good. Yes. No, isn't Rumi a great teacher? You know, I give workshops in the prison. It's it's the highlight of my week, and I bring Rumi a lot. I mean, people respond to Rumi.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because you're a visual artist as well, I'm wondering, do you do both? Maybe there are other art forms at once, or do you tend to go through phases where you're writing or doing visual art?
You know, I really feel lucky to have the time to do these both because they renew each other. It takes a lot of energy to write poetry and to do the art. So, you know, it's nice to switch off sometimes and have the field fallow and then grow. It's just nice, it's fun. And it's, you know, there are times when I can't do an art folk at all, but there are times when it's a lot of fun. I go for a walk, I find this great piece of driftwood, and then my beloved husband, despite the fact that it's not his favorite activity, he will, you know, help me. I need to bolt this onto this wood, and so it really is a dual project. He does a lot of bolting, God bless him. I'm busy too, you know. I have a life too, you know. Yeah, but I just need this right now.
Have you ever combined the two in any way?
You know, I haven't, but you know, when I have this show, I really want to somehow get a book out with just these different art folk. Because if I sell them, I want copies of them. So maybe I'll figure out a way to even incorporate a few lines. I have these dancing girls, all these women who are, most of them are dancing, most of my art folk are dancing, but there's this guy, Running Man, and someone whose name will be, I won't mention his name now, but he did say, Running Man looks like he knows he's going to be disappointed. By the time he reaches dancing girls, they'll have stopped dancing. Well, thank you very much.